So let's just record, although we are not able to stream, so we'll trying to record the video. Right, so we'll be recording the video and we'll try to explain all the programs that can come in your exam. So the first program that can come in your exam is of an 2D array. So first we'll see the basics of 2D array, and then we'll switch to a program that how we can make a program of 2D array. So 2D array is like we can present the 2D array into a matrix. For example, we are having five. The last index is 4, means we are having five columns. One, two, three, 4 and 5 columns. So we are in total we are having let's say 5 columns. So our target is to understand that how the two-dimensional array works, right? So we are having so this is a n cross n two-dimensional array having 5 cross 5 as size, because we know that the last index is 4 and the size is 5. Right. So now here we are trying to understand how we can access first. The first thing is that how we can access the elements of 2D array. So if let's say this is an 2D array, and the basic syntax of assigning 2D arrays, that int a, right? First we'll write the data type. If for example if I'm making it in char, so I'll write char a, two square brackets, then new char, right? And then I'll add my first bracket, and then I'll add my second bracket, right? So this is how we can initialize a 2D array, and by their index we can just access the elements. For example, the data is like, if this array contains any random data and I have to access this element, so what I can do is I can just write down a 0, and second thing is also this is also 0. So by this by applying the index, right, I can access the elements, right? So this is about the very basic of 2D array, and now our objective is to complete the patterns. How we can make patterns on a 2D array, right? So that is our logic. So for example, for first we have to understand that what are diagonals in 2D array. For example, this if I have to make it more clearly, right? Let's say this is an 2D array, right? And the element present 5. Let's make it 5 cross 5, 2, 3, 4, and now it has 4 rows. Now just try to construct 5 columns as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 columns. So let's say this is a 2D array of 5 cross 5. Right. Now when we are talking about the diagonals, so let's say this element, this element, this element, this element, and this element. These elements come into the main diagonal, and this element, this element again. Okay, this element and this element. So like let's say this diagonal is our secondary diagonal, and this diagonal is our main diagonal. So all the elements which are present in this let's say structure is the main diagonal, and elsewise the elements present in this diagonal is the secondary diagonal, right? So now we can check that for main diagonal the elements are 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, right? So we can say that the elements of the main diagonal are, the condition for elements of main diagonal are I is equals to j, right? So this is the condition for the main diagonal, as well as when we check the secondary diagonal. So 0 and 4, the sum is 4, 1 and 3, the sum is 4, 2 and 2, the sum is 4, 3 and 1, the sum is 4, 4 and 0, the sum is 4. So you can see that the sum of all the diagonal all the index means, you can say, if we are let's say letting that the first part, first index is row, second index is column, right? So you can say that the sum of row and column is equals to size minus 1, right? So the condition for the secondary diagonal is that I plus j should be equals to n minus 1, n is the size, right? So this is our necessary condition for the secondary diagonal, and this is our necessary condition for primary diagonal. For primary diagonal it was that I should equals to j, and for secondary diagonal what it was, let's say I plus j is equals to n minus 1, right? So let's move further. Up now I've tried, up now if I have to draw the pattern, okay, which let's say I have completed the code, just wait for a while, right? uh, so for example, yes, this is my code, and if I have to let's say print a pattern, if I have to print a pattern, where is the remaining one? I think there is some lag. So this is my program, right? This is my program, right? So if I have to let's say, if I have to say कि I have to make this pattern, a pattern which looks a pattern which let's say look like these shapes of star. So let's say if I have to make this pattern, so how we can make this pattern, right? How we can make it true? Oh shit, paste. Right, so now let's just increase the size. Right, so I have this pattern. Now how I can make this pattern, right? Using 2D array. So that is my objective. So I can see the elements, right, which is on the right for the, let's say when we are talking about the upper half of the code, so the elements which are lying inside the right diagonal, okay, inside the upper half of the main diagonal, right? So these elements and these elements, if I am able to let's say point out that what are the indexes of those elements which are having stars, and what are the simple logic is if I am able to trace what are the indexes of the elements which are having stars, and what are the indexes of elements which are not having stars, which are having spaces. So for example, let's say this was my 2D array. Let's just draw them into an 2D array, right? So I'm having, so in this specific code I was having 7 rows. It was functional for 7 rows. 1 2 3 4, and we are having 5 columns, right? So I'm able to, if I'm able to know if this is the element of the array, this is the element of the 2D array which is empty, right? This is the element of the 2D array which is empty. This is the element of 2D array which is empty. This is empty. This is space. This is having star, okay, and this is having space. Okay, so if I'm able to trace which parts of the array is having space and which part of the array is having star, then possibly I'll be able to make a pattern using 2D array, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm creating a block, okay, which have some which are having some grids, and if I'm able to trace which grid is having star and which grid is having space, so my work is done and I'm able to make that program easily, right? So I have coded this, and you can Now let's check how I have coded this. Right, so I have just first I have made a loop which starts from I and goes till n, right? So this is for the rows. This is for each row. This works for each row. This for first row, for second row, for third row, for fifth row. So this loop works for each row, right? And next, this loop is for columns. And in my first condition, this was let's say if either this, right, or this condition was made. This condition was made for the upper half of the code, right? Because I just told you that if I is less than is equals to j, and I plus j is less than is equals to n minus 1, so this condition is true. This condition is true for the right diagonals, right? So I can just see that this condition is true when this diagonal is there, this diagonal is there, this diagonal is there, this diagonal is there, and this diagonal is there, right? So अब the logic here is कि for example what we have to do is कि let's say the value of I is 0, right? And for this diagonal the first element is this, right? For example कि the first element of the secondary diagonal is 0,4 as well as the first element of the main diagonal is 0,0. So I have printed all the stars which are present in between the first element of the main diagonal and the second and the last element and the first element of secondary diagonal. Sorry. So what I did is that I have printed all the stars in between the first element of main diagonal and the first element of secondary diagonal. Okay, how I can write the condition by I is greater than equals to j, right? And in this I plus j is greater than equals to n minus 1, which was my primary condition and which was very basic, and fundamental. Then what I did is I have printed all the stars in between the second element of the main diagonal and the second element of secondary diagonal. Then I have printed all the stars in between the third element of main diagonal and the third element of second diagonal, right? Similarly, for lower half, I have printed all the stars in between the third element of this secondary diagonal and the third element of our main diagonal, right? And then the last element of our main diagonal and the last element of our secondary diagonal. So this is how you can think about this code. And after that, if you're able to put stars in these positions, right, and then this will give you and a pattern which will look like this, right? So this condition was true. For this condition was by making sure that we are able to fulfill the total number of stars in between the first element of main diagonal, then second element of main diagonal, then by similarly we will keep on increasing the elements which are present in diagonal, and similarly the pattern will appear. Right, so we are storing stars on those places, and on the rest places it's blank, right? So what we did is that first we did an first we took an array, take an empty array of size 5 cross 5, then we made it complete empty. Then what we did is on the specific positions, I told you what is the rule and what was the logic of those specific position. On those specific position, I edited stars, and on on rest of the position it was space, because I have already made an array which is containing space, right? So after that, when you will print this 2D array, so this 2D array is containing stars on those specific position where I wanted, as well as it is containing spaces on that specific position where I wanted, right? So when I printed that 2D array, it will result in the pattern that I desired. Right, so if I run this program, it will go like this, right? This is Acha, there is one more update or modification that you can do by yourself is that I have taken this number 5, you can make it through scanner and you can change the value, or you can let's say give to user that what value user wants to give for it, right? So similarly, if I have put it 15, so it will give me a pattern which has total, which is containing a 2D array of 15 rows and 15 columns, right? So this is how things work. So I hope you will be able to understand this. And that's it. Okay.